What is up? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day, however you're following, however you're watching the Ben Garcia Show. Breaking news today on the show. We'll get to that in just a moment. Normally it'd be a Ben Stint reaction, but today fell right perfectly on the Ben Garcia Show. We got a lot of things to talk about. DeAndre Hopkins traded. Jared Goff deserving some love. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend about the Ben Garcia Show. We appreciate you guys listening, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or again, here on YouTube. With all that being said, let's get to our top story of the day. Breaking news right out of the gate here on the Ben Garcia Show. Normally a Ben Stint reaction. We're not doing that this time around. We're just incorporating it into the whole show. DeAndre Hopkins traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. My first reaction to it when I saw it this morning, I immediately looked at my phone, saw the update, and it said Chiefs trade for, and I just read Cooper Kupp. I was 4 a.m. when I had saw this on the West Coast time, 4:30 a.m. I'm just waking up. I'm like, wait, what? They actually made the deal? This makes sense. It works out. Scratched my eyes, did a double take, and saw DeAndre Hopkins traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, obviously, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but just a fun story to be able to tell here on the show. My first reaction to DeAndre Hopkins going to the Kansas City Chiefs is just simply, it makes sense. They've got a lot of injuries. They've got a lot of people down. Isaiah Pacheco, Juju Smith-Schuster. Right now, Patrick Mahomes is playing with an aging Travis Kelce, a backup running back in Kareem Hunt who is signed off the scrap heap just a couple of weeks ago, and Justin Watson and Sky Moore. It's just not enough. DeAndre Hopkins adds a little bit of juice to this team. I was surprised when I saw that it was a conditional 4th-round pick. A 5th-round pick sounds more of the aspect of what DeAndre Hopkins should get, but a 4th-round pick, not too much of an overpay. Brett Veach is a good GM, and it is a conditional 4th-round pick. I'm still yet to see the conditions on that pick. I was a little confused, though, when I saw the Kansas City Chiefs traded for DeAndre Hopkins. I expected them to go big game hunting. They are trying to make history, and right now, the number 1 team in the NFL is the Kansas City Chiefs, and there is no number 2. I just expected them to hand over the 2nd-round pick, hand over the 3rd-round pick for Cooper Kupp. Now, given there were some salary constraints there, not allowing them to be able to go get their guy. Or I guess I should say there were some salary restraints there, not allowing them to go get their guy. But DeAndre Hopkins does add an element to this team that isn't necessarily predicated on just his athleticism. What has made DeAndre Hopkins so special in the league for so long is his catch radius, his ability to put the ball anywhere, and he will likely come down with it. That is exactly what Patrick Mahomes needs right now. Right now, Patrick is just a little up and down with his accuracy, kind of a little bit everywhere. It's not to say Patrick Mahomes is a bad quarterback. I don't even think he's having a terrible year, even though the casuals on Twitter will tell you that. Because, yeah, the stats aren't great, but every time they need to play, Patrick Mahomes makes it happen. What DeAndre Hopkins is going to add is an element of a deep shot down the field. He doesn't have blazing speed, but as I mentioned before, his catch radius is so wide, you can put that ball just about anywhere and deliver it right in the breadbasket of DeAndre Hopkins. He's produced everywhere he's went. This is a perfect guy who finally deserves a quarterback that can get the ball to him. Kyler Murray did this, but still at times, those guys weren't on the same page. Kyler was injured. DeAndre Hopkins got injured. They just missed some time together. But whether it was Ryan Mallett or Matt Schaub, whoever the Texans were rolling out at quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think, was there as well. Or at times, it was Colt McCoy with the Cardinals. Or Kyler Murray, a capable quarterback. And now Patrick Mahomes. DeAndre Hopkins is the simple receiver that just works everywhere. He has a track record of working everywhere. Whatever quarterback he works with, he just puts up 1,000 yards and a handful of touchdowns. Now he's had an injury history. That's something that worries me as well for the Chiefs. Over the past couple of seasons, he played every game last year. But dating back to 2021, He only played 10 games, 2022, 9 games, and in 2024, he has played in all 6 games this year. So just a little bit of an injury history for DeAndre Hopkins. Not anything crazy, mostly durable throughout the rest of his career, basically only missing 1 or 2 games prior to that point since entering the Arizona Cardinals. Overall, the Kansas City Chiefs are in go-for-it mode. They are trying to make history. DeAndre Hopkins activates an element of this offense that they haven't had since Tyreek Hill left. A wide receiver that can go up and get it with a spectacular range for a catch radius. He also allows them to go downfield, get cheap touchdowns. This is what the Mahomes Chiefs team has kind of been missing this year. The element of surprise, the element of a cheap touchdown, the element of a broken play, broken coverage, element over the top touchdown to a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. And when you add DeAndre Hopkins to this team, which, make no mistake, is not nearly the prime player he used to be, but still a number 1 wide receiver, especially on this Chiefs team, that alleviates some pressure off Patrick Mahomes to make everything work just with Scrap Heap and Sky Moore and Kareem Hunt in the backfield. This allows guys like Travis Kelce, who's in that aging part and saving himself towards the end of the season, to take a step back. The Chiefs' offense just looks better when fully healthy when you add DeAndre Hopkins to that mix. This allows everyone to take a step back, go back to a role that they're probably more comfortable with, and then putting DeAndre Hopkins in that spot. I'll be honest with you. I still am a little surprised that they aimed somewhat low and safe in DeAndre Hopkins. Patrick Mahomes gets it done with everyone, so maybe I shouldn't be surprised. But I don't think that the Kansas City Chiefs are done. I would not be surprised if they gave away a 6th-round pick or a 4th-round pick or another day 2 or day 3 pick for a guy like Deontay Johnson, for a guy who could be out there, Christian Kirk. That name would make sense. DeAndre Hopkins is still a very productive wide receiver and works with literally any quarterback. But this Chiefs team, although this alleviates some pressure from Mahomes, I do think needs to make one more move. Could they still win the Super Bowl with the guys they got? Sure. But do you want to try that again? Or do you want to make it easier on yourself? And with a GM like Brett Veach who makes the right decision everywhere he goes, it just makes sense for them to make one more move. And I believe they will. Whether it's for a Deontay Johnson, whether it's for a Christian Kirk. But the rest of the league needs to be put on notice. Because if the Chiefs do make another move for a guy to the tier of a wide receiver of Christian Kirk or a Deontay Johnson or someone else out there, there's no one stopping the Chiefs. Already, there was no one stopping the Chiefs. The Bills, no, I've already seen that story before. As much as I love Josh Allen, they're not getting done with Sean McDermott. The Ravens, sure, they have Derrick Henry, but abandon their game plan every time they play the Chiefs. The Texans are interesting, but lost last week to the Packers. The Niners, no, we've seen that Super Bowl before. No one was beating the Chiefs. Adding DeAndre Hopkins adds insurance to that. Just making sure that everyone knows they're still not within arm's reach of the Chiefs. DeAndre Hopkins as well is a very smart player, hyper competitive. I am happy for the guy as a scorned Cardinals fan who basically got dropped off from the Cardinals, going over to the Chiefs and having a real chance to win a Super Bowl. And at this point, adding DeAndre Hopkins, although it's not exactly what I thought they were going to do, and although he adds an element to this offense, cheap touchdowns over the top, broken plays, huge catch radius, and still a very productive wide receiver, it does shock me that they didn't get someone a little bit better than DeAndre Hopkins at this point in his career. I don't think they're done. I think someone like Deontay Johnson, Christian Kirk, is still on their radar. But if anyone thought they were catching the Chiefs or anyone thought they were lacking, this is just more insurance and more notice to the league that they are just head and shoulders above everyone else and no one is really close. Great get for the Chiefs. Great get. I still expect them to do a little bit more. But as of right now, even before this trade, They are head and shoulders the Super Bowl favorite, and they just keep on outsmarting everyone else. This makes all the world in the sense for the Chiefs, and they are still the team to beat in the NFL. All right, so from one trade talk to another in just a moment here, but the Detroit Lions have firmly supplanted themselves as the best team in the NFC. Now, at this point, you can make some arguments. My preseason prediction was the Packers and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year. But the Packers, a quarterback who's got a little bit of Josh Allen in him in terms of the old, not so great Josh Allen where he's throwing interceptions, just bad plays, mistakes. I love Jordan Love. I think he's a top 6 quarterback in the NFL. But he's got to coach out some of those issues. The San Francisco 49ers, I am just head and shoulders past everyone on this. I mentioned the Niners were going to pull back this year. No one believed me. I was called crazy. I was called a hot take artist. I was correct. You can leave your apologies down in the comments below. The Buccaneers, a lot of injuries. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin's done for the year. Running game suspect. The Commanders, just a little young right now for me to be able to pick them as a favorite in the NFC, although they are turning heads. Jaden Daniels is already injured, though, with this team. Seahawks, I don't believe in them. The Falcons, 2 up and down. Kirk Cousins. The Vikings, a team that I still believe in. 5-1, absolutely a contender in the NFC. We already mentioned the Packers. The Bears, just out on everything there. The Rams, no. After this past weekend, the Lions going into Minnesota and beating the Vikings, and at one point, dropping 21 straight points in the second quarter against the Vikings, they just put their foot on the throat. And even though they make some mistakes, and even though in this game, the Vikings take the lead, the Detroit Lions are cool, calm, and collected. You know, I had my reservations about Dan Campbell. I thought he was a little too much rah-rah. I thought it didn't make a lot of sense. I thought he was kind of at first, a clown show. Too emotional, but I've been wrong. Dan Campbell, these players love him. They are bought in, and this Lions team is fierce. And I thought they were going to pull back this year. Not to the point of the Niners. I absolutely still believe this team was going to be a playoff team. But this team, defensively, they're better this year. Now, TBD. We'll wait till the playoffs to give a real accurate observation on that. Jahmyr Gibbs, Sonic and Knuckles as they call them, Thunder and Lightning, whatever you want to say, they have the ability to knock you out offensively. A finesse guy in Jahmyr Gibbs who can get around you when you're tired, and David Montgomery who will punish you to the point of attack, exhausting you on every play. And now they have a surplus of receivers. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Khalif Raymond's been good. Tim Patrick's been good. Sam Laporta's still there. Jamison Williams is there playing well, but is now at this point suspended for, can't remember, I think it was potentially some sort of steroid or whatever, anti-doping, whatever it was. Not necessarily going to get into that, but Jamison Williams is gone to this point. This Lions team has all the makings of a Super Bowl team. I expect them to continuously find ways to win, and that's what they've done. And not just the Detroit Lions as a whole, but more specifically what Jared Goff has been doing for this Lions team. 3 weeks ago, didn't have a single incompletion on Monday Night Football against a Seahawks defense that was missing talent, but still diced up a defense in the Seattle Seahawks that people see as more than formidable. And then you have Jared Goff going up against a Vikings defense and Brian Flores, who has made every quarterback look like a middle schooler, who has confused guys like Brock Purdy, who people have told me are elite. Guys like the name's CJ Stroud. Name escaped me there for a second. But quarterbacks that players and organizations respect, CJ Stroud, Brock Purdy, these guys have literally went on record saying, I don't even know what I was seeing out there. Not Jared Goff. And this is a fine Vikings pass rush. Jared Goff is just slicing and dicing teams. And at this point, when do I start to acknowledge Jared Goff as a top 5, top 6 quarterback in the NFL? You cannot name 3 quarterbacks just this year alone who are playing better and more efficiently than Jared Goff. And it's not like Jared Goff has this loads of arsenal of weapons. Yes, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. Those are obviously good pieces. But it's not like what Brock Purdy had last year. It's just not. The offensive line is good. And when you see Jared Goff go on the road and dice up a Brian Flores defense that has made every quarterback look silly this far into the season, you just have to give your flowers. You just have to give your respect. Jared Goff is playing like a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. If you think you can name 3 quarterbacks better than Jared Goff just this year alone, you are sadly mistaken. And you have a bias against Jared Goff that even I had to get over. 22 for 25, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, a QBR of basically 90, a passer rating that was near perfect in 140, and still took 4 sacks on the game. It's not like he was under pressure. But he is making other teams look silly. And at this point, it is just insanity to have Jared Goff outside your top 5 quarterbacks if you're just talking this season alone. And this team, led by Ben Johnson on the offensive side, this team, led by Dan Campbell, from a chief of the team perspective. Jared Goff, who is playing phenomenally. One of the best quarterbacks in the NFL this year. Potentially the best quarterback in the NFL this year. And you add in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't know which NFC team is beating the Lions in the playoffs. Because they're going to have home field advantage. They have a real home field advantage when teams come to them. That crowd is raucous. And it's not the Eagles, it's not the Niners, it's not the Rams, it's not the Vikings. As of right now, the Lions stand alone. And a lot of it has to do with Jared Goff being so phenomenal this year and then being properly coached by Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell. And that leads me to this. The only thing that takes me away from picking the Detroit Lions as the Super Bowl favorite this year, because I think everywhere they're complete, is now with their pass rush. Is now with the loss of Aiden Hutchinson, which is massive to this Lions team. Aiden Hutchinson goes down. You have young players everywhere. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta. You got young guys everywhere. The rookie cornerback. You don't need another draft to continue to build an arsenal of weapons. You already have that. Sure, you do need some picks to continue to replenish each year, but it's time to push the chips in the middle. The Detroit Lions should trade for Myles Garrett. There are not many teams that are in a position to give up what the Browns would want for Myles Garrett. It's going to cost you potentially multiple ones. It's going to cost you a first and then some. But the Browns are reeling, and if they have a real thought in their head, a cohesive, competent thought in their head, if they have that, they should start selling the farm now while guys are hot. Myles Garrett, 28 years old, the reigning defensive player of the year. This Lions team in the playoffs, we've already mentioned their defense can be suspect at times. They need a pass rush. They need to fix their pass rush. They need to replenish that. Myles Garrett does it. Don't tell me about the money. Don't tell me about the issues with caps. You can figure it out if your owner is willing to. Myles Garrett fits this Lions team, and it's now or never. Your window of opportunity in the NFL is so thin. The margin of error is so thin. It's time for the Lions to push the chips in the table and go get Myles Garrett. They have the draft capital to do so. They are one of the few teams in the NFL that can justify it. And as I mentioned before, the window in this league is so close. It's so close. It's razor thin. You have to act sooner rather than later. Myles Garrett helps fix this pass rush and helps bolster this Lions defense that desperately needs it and needs a jolt in the arm with Aiden Hutchinson going down. It makes sense. The Lions should do it. Myles Garrett would fit in well. And I believe at the end of the day, Myles Garrett, the best fit for him is a team that has a chance to win a Super Bowl. He's been on the losing Browns his entire career, and outside of one or two playoff appearances that didn't last long, the guy hasn't had a real chance for a Super Bowl. Make the call if you're the Detroit Lions. Go get Myles Garrett and fortify your pass rush for a Super Bowl potential run. That's all I got for you guys today on the Ben Garcia Show. We have Thursday Night Football tomorrow. I'll be back with a reaction. Potentially the Vikings getting back in the winning column. TJ Hawkinson potentially returning to the fold. I'll have a reaction for you guys on Friday for that game. Appreciate you guys tuning into the Ben Garcia Show. And until next Ben Garcia Show, until then, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts for free on the iHeartRadio app, or you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I'm Benjamin Garcia, and it's been the Ben Garcia Show.